Since becoming a near-global celebration, Christmas has developed into a blueprint for American soft power. Santa Claus is an icon that is recognized across the globe, even in non-Christian societies. But you don't get to the state of global icon without controversy. Soft power, as measured by intangible factors such as institutions, ideas, values, culture, etc., plays an important role in the distribution of global influence. Christmas, therefore, has a geopolitical dimension that is worthy of consideration. I'm your host Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. Special thanks to Santa Barbara Chocolate for sponsoring this episode. As a chocolate connoisseur, they bring some of the finest sourced chocolate to the online market and make high-end brands at wholesale prices easy and affordable. Whether you're looking for rich, dark European chocolate classics or Brazilian cocoa chunks, perhaps even new wave California truffles or Italian hazelnut paste, Santa Barbara Chocolate got it. Visit their site and treat yourself. Use the promo code CaspianReport to get 15% off any item in any category. You'll find the links in the description and the comments section. The celebration of Christmas goes back centuries, but its modern format was only brought to life in the 19th century. In Europe, Germans incorporated pagan accessories such as pine trees, reindeer, etc. with the Christian faith. The Dutch revived the memories of Saint Nicholas, the ancestor of modern Santa Claus. At the same time, English-speaking authors, such as Charles Dickens and Washington Irving, rehabilitated stories on the holiday and invented the mythology of Christmas, often described as the spirit of Christmas. Meanwhile, English carols and seasonal salutations, such as the phrase Merry Christmas, became part of the tradition of Christmas. Many of these proceedings took place at the background of the Industrial Revolution, when the celebration of affection, family, generosity, and community became a cornerstone of the British middle class. So, while at the zenith of the British Empire, the Royal Navy projected power in every continent on Earth, Britain's soft power reached farther still. Nations that sought to do business with Britain inadvertently imported cultural ideas. Perhaps Victorian Britain's best-known cultural export was the decorated pine tree, which fostered a craze for Christmas trees as the British Empire encouraged globalization. In the next century, as the United States overtook Britain in terms of hard power, so too did American soft power inherit British traditions. From the business suits we wear today, to the sandwich we consume, to the use of English as an international language, much of our modern conducts are affected by British soft power and the Americans who inherited the package. Christmas was part of the soft power transition. In 1932, Coca-Cola presented the first take on modern Santa Claus as a white-bearded and red-suited jolly character. And in the following years, numerous Christmas songs were released, such as Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Frosty the Snowman, Let It Snow, I'll Be Home for Christmas, The Christmas Song, Jingle Bells, and so on. The songs were then accompanied by a host of equally enchanting Christmas films, including It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and more recently Home Alone. Of course, European songs and films were released as well, but since the 1940s, Christmas has primarily been an American export, and the American commercialized version of the holiday is recognized and celebrated throughout the world, even in non-Christian countries such as China, Japan, India, Turkey, etc. That's because modern Christmas, even though it is Christian at heart, is also less a religious holiday than a universal celebration of affection, family, generosity, and community. Internationalized Christmas, or Americanized Christmas, has become largely secular as a result, making it approachable to non-Western societies. So what exactly does this cast of influence mean in geopolitical terms? Well, hard and soft power go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other, for the reason that each generates the other. But the two are of course fundamentally different. Hard power consists of tangible factors like geography, natural resources, and military strength. Soft power refers to components like education, culture, technology, etc. The concept of power lies at the heart of geopolitics, and while hard power relies on coercion, soft power is a form of propaganda that is about voluntary persuasion. For instance, when Russia uses its energy monopoly to force Belarus to behave a certain way, that is hard power coercion. It implies Belarus doing something against its will, perhaps even acting against its best interest. Soft power, on the other hand, occurs when Russia lacks leverage over Belarus but still wants it to behave a certain way. Moscow could, for instance, use the dominance of the Russian language in science and commerce to persuade Belarus to comply with Russian policy. Ultimately, soft power is less effective because the recipient nation must decide on its own terms to comply or refuse the gesture of the patron. Yet many nations engage in soft power regardless because it provides an alternative to achieving an objective at a lower cost. The way China uses cheap loans and large-scale investments to gain the favor of policymakers in Manila and thereby shape the foreign policy of the Philippines is an example of how cost-effective soft power can be when applied with measure. Earlier in 2019, a British consultancy firm called Portland released a report ranking the world's top 30 countries by soft power. The equation was based on elements such as culture, education, enterprise, digital footprint, etc. The first thing that stands out in the report is that the European nations outrank other geopolitical heavyweights. For instance, Greece outranks China, while Ireland is above Russia. So in terms of soft power, one might be inclined to think that the two small European states are more powerful than the larger states, but we know that's just not true. The credibility of soft power is questionable because policymakers do not always have the means to steer, shape, or manipulate the outcome. To come full circle, even though Christmas has a significant cultural impact across the globe, Washington is unable to utilize the holiday as a political instrument in the way it can apply hard power such as sanctions or military activity. Soft power can only remain effective as long as people voluntarily embrace it. Otherwise, it becomes propaganda, which is more likely to alienate the target audience than to win them over. Consider for a moment American icons such as blue jeans, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Michael Jackson. These are cherished and consumed all over the world. Yet, strangely enough, most people in the Middle East, South America, and parts of Eurasia still detest the government of the United States. So the cast of soft power does not equate to a victory over the hearts and minds. It might eventually get there in the span of centuries, but not within a generation. Paradoxically, soft power can also dissipate as hard power depreciates. In the 18th century, when France mustered more physical force than any other state, the French language, cuisine, customs, etc. reached deeply into the heart of distant European capitals. However, as French hard power receded, people turned away from French culture, education, and customs because its realm was ceasing to matter. So although soft power reads well on paper, its reliance on voluntary persuasion makes it less consequential than hard power. In this regard, when taking the celebration of Christmas as a geopolitical force, America's secular and commercialized brand of Christmas is a product of its time, and it will expand and contract accordingly with America's hard power. But in no relevant shape or form can Washington hone Christmas as a credible political instrument. It is largely and globally a secular celebration with no political agenda. Merry Christmas to all. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. Credit goes to our support base on Patreon for giving us the means to make reports like these. If you want to learn more, see the description. Thank you for your time and Sahol.